On a quiet morning in Thunder Basin, Wyoming, old Jack Wheeler finds a badly burned horse collapsed near his ranch gate. The animal's eyes tell a story of pain, but there's something else there. A spark of spirit that refuses to die. Over weeks of patient care, Jack nurses the horse back to health, sharing his meals and talking to it during sleepless nights. Then word spreads through town about the horse's unique markings. They match perfectly with an Arabian stallion that belonged to Thomas Montgomery, the billionaire who mysteriously disappeared 10 years ago. As Jack digs deeper into the horse's past, he uncovers clues that powerful people have worked hard to bury. But one question haunts him more than any other. What happened on the night both horse and master vanished? And why has one returned without the other? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn crept over Thunder Basin, painting the Wyoming sky in watercolor shades of pink and gold. Jack Wheeler's boots crunched across frost-covered gravel as he made his way to the barn, his father's worn veterinary manual tucked under one arm. The book's leather cover was cracked with age, its pages dog-eared and annotated with 3 generations of Wheeler wisdom. Inside the barn, the injured horse lay on a thick bed of fresh straw. Its breathing was steadier than the night before, but Jack could see the tension in its muscles, the way it tracked his movement with wary eyes. Burns covered much of its left flank, angry red welts that told a story of terror and escape. "Easy now," Jack murmured, keeping his voice low and steady. He set the manual down on a wooden crate and slowly approached. "Let's see what we're dealing with here." The horse's nostrils flared, but it didn't try to rise. Whether from exhaustion or a growing trust, Jack couldn't tell. He'd seen enough injured animals in his 68 years to know that sometimes staying still was the only choice. They had left. Opening the manual to a page marked with a faded ribbon, Jack began his assessment. His father's voice seemed to whisper from the yellowed pages. "Always start with the eyes. They'll tell you more than any medical chart." The horse's eyes were clear, a good sign. No cloudiness, no signs of fever, but there was something in their depth that made Jack pause. Intelligence, yes, but something more, something he'd never seen in any horse before. A truck's engine rumbled outside, followed by the slam of a car door. Dr. Sarah Martinez's voice carried through the barn doors. "Jack, you in there? Come on in, Sarah. Could use your opinion on this one." Sarah appeared in the doorway, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, veterinary bag in hand. At 35, she represented the new generation of Thunder Basin's animal doctors, all modern techniques and digital charts. But she respected Jack's old-school knowledge enough to hear him out, even when their methods differed. She stopped, short at the sight of the horse. "My God, Jack, when you said injured, I didn't expect—" Her professional demeanor took over as she approached, already pulling on latex gloves. "These burns are severe. We need to get him on antibiotics immediately." Jack held up his father's manual. "Got something else in mind first. My dad had a special treatment for burns. Learned it from a Crow medicine man back in '62. Sarah's expression wavered between skepticism and curiosity. "Jack, I know you've got experience, but these injuries—" "Look at his eyes, Sarah. Really look." She paused, then knelt beside the horse. For a long moment she was silent. Finally, she said, "I've never seen markings quite like these. Arabian breeding, definitely, but there's something else. That's not what I meant." Jack knelt on the horse's other side, ignoring the protest of his aging knees. "Look at how he's watching us, assessing. This isn't just fear or pain. He's listening, understanding." The horse's ears twitched forward at Jack's words, as if confirming his observation. Sarah's scientific skepticism battled with what she was seeing. "Okay," she said finally. "Tell me about this treatment of yours. But we do this my way, if it doesn't show improvement by tomorrow." Jack opened the manual to the relevant page, pointing to his father's careful annotations. The margins were filled with drawings of plants, measurements, and warnings written in faded ink, We start with yarrow, he explained, then comfrey, aloe, all things that grow right here on the ranch, mixed with honey in the right proportions. As he spoke, the horse relaxed slightly, its breathing becoming more regular. Whether from the calm tone of their voices or some deeper understanding, it seemed to know they were there to help. "Let me document everything," Sarah said, pulling out her phone to photograph the burns. "These marks, they're not random, Jack. Some of them almost look deliberate." Jack nodded grimly. "Noticed that myself. Someone did this to him, and I aim to find out who." The morning light strengthened, illuminating the barn's interior. As Jack began preparing his father's remedy, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just another injured animal. This horse had chosen his ranch, chosen him, and Jack Wheeler was about to be pulled into something far bigger than a simple case of animal rescue. The Thunder Basin diner hadn't changed its coffee or its conversations in 40 years. Jack sat in his usual booth, the vinyl seat cracked in familiar places, while Betty topped off his cup without asking. The morning regulars huddled over their eggs and hash browns, but their eyes kept drifting to the newspaper clipping Hank Morrison had spread across the counter. "I'm telling you, Jack," Hank said, jabbing his finger at the yellowed paper. "This is from the Wall Street Journal, October 2014. Tech billionaire Thomas Montgomery missing after laboratory fire. That horse of yours, the markings match. His prize, Arabian stallion Phoenix." Jack stirred his coffee slowly, watching the cream create spiral patterns. "Lot of Arabian horses in the world, Hank. Not with that distinctive star pattern. Look here." Hank brought the clipping to Jack's booth, pointing to a small photo in the corner. White mark shaped like a flame, right between the eyes. The diner's bell chimed as Deputy Mike Collins walked in, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. He nodded to the regulars before sliding into Jack's booth. "Word travels fast in small towns," he said, accepting a coffee from Betty. "Thought I should hear about this mystery horse straight from the source." Jack studied Mike's face. They'd known each other since Mike was a boy, back when Jack had helped his father train police horses. "Not much to tell. Found him hurt, getting him healthy. Mind if I take a look?" Mike's tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp. "Given the circumstances, might be worth filing a report." "What circumstances would those be?" Mike lowered his voice. "Got a call from the FBI field office in Cheyenne yesterday. They're interested in any unusual activity in the area. Wouldn't say why, but they were mighty specific about horses." The diner had gone quiet, everyone straining to hear. Jack could feel the weight of their attention, the way small-town curiosity could quickly become something more demanding. "Tell you what," Jack said, standing and leaving money for his coffee. "Why don't you come out to the ranch? See for yourself." Outside, the October wind cut through Jack's jacket. Mike followed him to his truck, the newspaper clipping now folded in his pocket. "Jack," he said, "if this is Montgomery's horse, then a lot of questions need answering." Jack finished. "But first, we need to make sure he heals." As they drove toward the ranch, Jack's cell phone rang. An unfamiliar number with a New York area code. He let it go to voicemail, but the same number called back immediately. "Wheeler?" he answered, putting it on speaker. A smooth, corporate voice responded. "Mr. Wheeler, I represent certain interested parties. We understand you've recently acquired a horse with unique characteristics. We'd like to make you an offer. Horse isn't for sale. Mr. Wheeler, we're prepared to be extremely generous. Say, 5 times whatever the animal's apparent value might be." Mike was already taking notes, his police instincts engaged. "Like I said," Jack replied, "not for sale, and not much point calling back." He ended the call as they pulled up to the ranch. Sarah's truck was still parked outside the barn, and she emerged as they approached, her expression troubled. "Jack," she said, "you need to see this." She held up a small metal object no bigger than a grain of rice. "Found it under his skin while treating the burns. It's some kind of advanced tracking chip, but like nothing I've ever seen in veterinary work." Mike examined the chip, whistling softly. "Military grade," he said. Seen similar tech in police K9 units, but this is way more sophisticated. Jack looked toward the barn, where the horse was now standing, watching them through the open door with those unnaturally intelligent eyes. The morning sun caught the white flame mark between its eyes, making it seem to glow. "Well," Jack said, "guess we know why people are interested." He turned to Mike. "Might want to make that report after all." Inside the barn, the horse nickered, softly, as if agreeing, but there was something else in that sound, a warning that made Jack's spine tingle. Whatever secrets this animal carried, powerful people wanted them to stay buried. Betty's daughter Jenny burst into the yard, out of breath from running. "Turn on the radio," she gasped. "They're talking about Mr. Montgomery. They think they've found something." The radio crackled with static as they huddled around it in the barn office. Sources close to the investigation claim that items belonging to Thomas Montgomery have been discovered in a remote cabin in the Bighorn Mountains. The tech billionaire's disappearance 10 years ago. Jack turned it down, watching the horse through the office window. The animal had positioned itself to see both the main entrance and the back door. Not typical horse behavior. Sarah was examining the partially burned brand on its flank, her phone's camera clicking steadily. "Jack," she called, "you need to see this." Under the burns and scarring, a distinctive mark was becoming visible, a stylized M surrounded by a pentagon. Mike pulled up an image on his phone, comparing them side by side. "Montgomery Stables," he confirmed, "their registered brand." The horse's ears twitched at the name. Jack had been around enough working animals to know when one was paying attention, really paying attention, to human conversation. This horse wasn't just listening, it was gathering information. His phone buzzed again. Rachel's number. He'd been avoiding her calls for weeks, but something told him this wasn't about their usual arguments. "Dad." Her voice was tense, professional, her journalist tone. "Are you watching the news? Been a bit busy. There's more to this Montgomery story than they're reporting. I'm driving out." "Rachel, 4 hours. Have coffee ready." She hung up before he could object. Sarah looked up from her examination. "The burns are healing well with your father's treatment, but I'm finding something else. Regular surgical scars, precise incisions. Someone operated on this horse multiple times." "What kind of operations?" "That's just it. They don't match any standard veterinary procedures I know. And look at this." She pointed to a small area behind the horse's left ear. "Some kind of port, like you'd see in advanced medical trials. But I've never heard of anything like this being used in horses." The horse turned its head toward them, and Jack saw something he'd missed before. Its eyes weren't just intelligent, they held comprehension, as if it understood not just their words, but their implications. Mike's radio squawked. "All units, be advised. Federal agents are en route to Thunder Basin. All officers maintain current positions and await further instructions." "They're coming about the horse," Jack said. It wasn't a question. "You need to file a report before they get here," Mike insisted. "Do this by the book." Book went out the window when we found military-grade tech in a supposedly missing billionaire's horse. Jack checked his watch. "Rachel will be here in 4 hours. Feds probably sooner. Sarah, what do you need to document everything?" "Already done," she said, holding up her phone. "Sent myself encrypted copies too. But Jack, if this horse is evidence in a federal investigation..." The horse snorted sharply, pawing the ground, its eyes fixed on the back door moments before. They heard the crunch of tires on gravel. "Mike?" Jack nodded toward the sound. "Nobody's supposed to be here yet." Mike drew his weapon, moving carefully toward the door. Jack touched Sarah's arm. "Get your photos somewhere safe. And Sarah, thank you for everything." She nodded, understanding. This was no longer just about treating an injured animal. They were all involved in something much bigger now. The horse moved with surprising grace for its injuries, positioning itself between them and the door. Its posture reminded Jack of the police horses he'd trained, alert, protective, ready. A sharp knock echoed through the barn. "Mr. Wheeler, we represent the Montgomery estate. We're here to discuss the return of some missing property." The Horse's muscles tensed. Jack saw fear in its eyes for the first time since that first morning. Not the fear of an animal in pain, but something deeper, something human. "Call Rachel," he whispered to Sarah. "Tell her to hurry." The knocking came again, more insistent. Through the barn's high windows, Jack could see men in dark suits spreading out around the building. The morning sun caught something metallic in their hands. The horse looked at Jack, and in that moment, an understanding passed between them. Whatever secrets this animal carried, whatever experiments had been done, whatever had happened 10 years ago, the truth needed to come out. But first, they had to survive the next 4 hours. Dusk settled over Thunder Basin like a heavy blanket, bringing with it an uneasy quiet. The men from the Montgomery estate had retreated after Jack demanded a warrant, but their sleek black SUVs still lurked at the edge of his property. Sarah had taken her documentation to a secure location, while Mike called in additional deputies to patrol the area. Now Jack sat in the darkened barn, a thermos of coffee at his side, watching security camera feeds on an old laptop. The horse hadn't slept. It stood alert in its stall, ears constantly moving, tracking sounds Jack couldn't hear. Every so often, it would look directly at one of the hidden cameras, as if it knew exactly where they were. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Jack murmured. The horse's ear flicked in response. "Yeah, me too." Movement on one of the cameras caught his attention, a shadow where there shouldn't be one, moving with military precision. Jack reached beneath his chair, feeling for the worn canvas bag he hadn't opened in decades. His phone buzzed softly. "Rachel, 2 hours out, road's clear, but there's a helicopter heading your way. Not police or news." The horse suddenly went still, its attention fixed on the barn's north wall. Jack switched camera feeds just in time to see 3 figures in tactical gear slip into his blind spot. Their movement pattern was familiar. He'd taught similar techniques during his own service. Without thinking, Jack's hands moved through well-remembered motions, assembling the contents of the canvas bag. The weight of the night vision scope felt like greeting an old friend. "Should have done more research, boys," he whispered, watching the thermal signatures approach. "Wheeler Ranch isn't just a retirement home." The horse moved silently to the center of its stall, positioning itself away from potential sightlines. It was a defensive maneuver that spoke of training, or something more. The first intruder breached the barn's side door, moving with the confidence of someone who thought they knew the layout. They didn't notice the tripwire until it was too late. A cascade of empty feed buckets crashed down, shattering the nights. Silence. Jack was already moving, decades of training taking over. He disabled the first man with a precision learned in places his military record didn't mention. The second intruder brought up a weapon, but the horse's sudden scream startled him just long enough for Jack to close the distance. The third man was better trained. He adjusted quickly, tactically sound, weapon ready, but he made one crucial mistake. He assumed he was dealing with a simple rancher. "Stand down," the man ordered, his voice professional, controlled. "This doesn't have to get messy." "Son," Jack replied, his own voice carrying the quiet authority that had once commanded special operations teams. "It got messy the moment you stepped onto my property." The horse moved with supernatural silence, emerging from shadows that should have been too dark to navigate. The intruder's night vision gear caught its eyes, reflecting an eerie green glow. For a crucial moment, the man's attention wavered. It was all Jack needed. When Deputy Collins arrived minutes later, he found 3 unconscious men, zip-tied with their own restraints. Jack was calmly pouring coffee, while the horse stood watch over the prisoners. "Good Lord, Jack," Mike breathed, taking in the scene. "Where did you learn to—" "Same place I learned to train police horses," Jack cut him off, catching his eye. Mike's father had known what Jack really did during his training consultations abroad. Some things were better left in the past. The horse nickered softly, drawing their attention. In the confusion, its bandages had shifted, revealing more of the surgical scars. Under the harsh beam of Mike's flashlight, they could see that the incisions formed a pattern, deliberate, mathematical, almost like a circuit board etched into flesh. What kind of research was Montgomery doing? Mike wondered aloud. Before Jack could respond, the sound of helicopter rotors filled the air. Rachel's warning had been right. The horse's reaction was immediate and unprecedented. It moved to Jack's laptop, using its nose to deliberately tap the keyboard. On screen, lines of code appeared, too fast to follow. Jack and Mike stared as windows began opening, displaying classified documents, security protocols, and finally, a video file labeled Project Phoenix Phase 1. The timestamp showed October 13th, 2014, the day Montgomery disappeared. "Dad?" Rachel's voice came from the barn entrance. She took in the scene, the bound intruders, the classified documents, the horse standing almost proudly by the laptop. "What exactly have you gotten yourself into?" "Wish I knew, sweetheart," Jack replied, watching as more files appeared on screen. "But I think we're about to find out." Rachel's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard, her investigative instincts in full gear. The dawn light was just beginning to creep through the barn windows, casting long shadows across the scattered evidence of the night's confrontation. Local deputies had taken the intruders into custody, but Jack knew that was only a temporary solution. The horse stood behind Rachel, watching the screen with unnerving focus. Every few minutes, it would tap a hoof when she scrolled past something. "Significant. This is impossible," Rachel muttered, opening Montgomery's last known email. "Dad, look at this." The message was dated October 12th, 2014, 11:42 p.m. To, redacted, from Thomas Montgomery, montgomerytech.com. Subject, Project Phoenix, final notice. If you're reading this, the failsafe has been activated. They discovered what we did, what we really created, but they don't understand. The integration was successful beyond our wildest expectations. Not just enhanced intelligence, but true consciousness transfer. The ethical implications alone. I've hidden the core data where they'll never find it. Phoenix knows what to do when the time comes. Remember what I taught you about neural pathways and quantum encoding? That's the key. They're here. If something happens to me, find Wheeler. He's the only one who'll understand. Truth above all, Thomas. He knew you? Rachel turned to her father. Why would a tech billionaire? Not me, Jack interrupted, remembering. Your grandfather. They served together in Vietnam. Thomas was just a young engineer then, working on early animal behavior studies for the military. The horse, Phoenix, moved to the laptop again. Its hoof tapped deliberately on the keyboard, opening a hidden directory. Video files appeared, showing a younger Montgomery in a state-of-the-art laboratory. Project Phoenix represents a quantum leap in consciousness studies, Montgomery's recorded voice explained. We've discovered that the equine brain has unique properties that make it ideal for advanced neural networking, but more importantly, the video corrupted suddenly, dissolving into static. Phoenix snorted in apparent frustration. The files are degraded, Rachel said, but look at these research notes. They were working on something called consciousness bridging, some kind of experimental technology for transferring human cognitive patterns into enhanced animal neural networks. In English? Jack asked, though from the way Phoenix was reacting, he was beginning to understand. They found a way to put human minds into animals, Rachel translated, or at least they were trying to. Most of the technical data is encrypted, but these progress reports, Dad, I think they succeeded. A sharp knock at the barn door made them all jump. Sarah's voice called out, Jack, you need to see this. The veterinarian entered, holding printouts of blood work and cellular analysis. I've never seen anything like it. The horse's neural activity is off the charts, and these cellular structures, she spread the papers on a workbench. It's like someone rewrote its genetic code, but with a purpose. The burn marks, they're not from a fire, they're from some kind of massive energy surge. Phoenix nodded, a deliberate human gesture that made Sarah step back. My God, she whispered. It's true then? Montgomery's consciousness? Not exactly, Rachel said, reading more encrypted files. According to this, they discovered something unexpected. The process didn't just transfer consciousness, it merged it. Human intelligence combined with equine instincts and abilities. A true hybrid consciousness. The sound of approaching vehicles cut through the morning quiet. Jack checked the security. Cameras, black SUVs, different from last night's visitors, government plates. Rachel, he said quickly, download everything you can. Sarah, get those blood results somewhere safe. They're going to try to contain this, bury it all over again. Phoenix moved to the barn doors, looking back at them with those two intelligent eyes. A decision had been made. Wait, Rachel called, reading the last decrypted file. There's more. Montgomery didn't disappear. He went into hiding to protect Phoenix, but he left a backup plan. Something about a second lab, off the grid. Coordinates are encrypted, but the horse's hoof struck the ground 3 times. In the dust, clear numbers began to appear, written with deliberate precision. Well, Jack said, hearing car doors slam outside. Guess we're going on a road trip. Jack's old footlocker hadn't seen daylight in 20 years. He pulled it from beneath the floorboards of his bedroom while Rachel kept watch. The government agents were still waiting outside, reviewing their authorization paperwork. A delay, brought by Mike's insistence on proper procedure. The ancient padlock clicked open, revealing a carefully preserved collection of his past life. Under a faded green beret, he found what he was looking for. A leather-bound folder stamped with "Classified" in fading red ink. I wasn't just a horse trainer, Jack explained, spreading documents across his bed. Your grandfather and I worked with a specialized unit. We developed ways to use animals in intelligence operations, things the public wasn't ready to know about. Rachel examined a yellowed photograph. Her grandfather, a young Jack, and a fresh-faced Thomas Montgomery standing before a row of unusually alert military horses. Project Sentinel, Jack continued. That was the official name. But Thomas, he always saw it as something more. He believed animals had untapped cognitive potential. The brass thought he was crazy until his horses started doing things that shouldn't have been possible. Phoenix watched from the doorway, ears forward with intense interest. The horse's presence seemed to fill the room with an almost electric tension. After Vietnam, Thomas used his military connections to secure private funding, founded Montgomery Tech but kept his real research off the books. Jack held up a newspaper clipping about Montgomery's rise in the tech world. Everyone thought he was just another software billionaire, the perfect cover. Rachel's phone buzzed. Dad, look at this. Montgomery Tech stock is going crazy. Massive. Buy-ups through shell companies, all in the last 24 hours. Jack remembered something from his special operations days. Check who's behind the shells. Look for a company called Blackthorn Dynamics. Her fingers flew across the phone's screen. How did you know? They're buying everything they can get. Because Blackthorn's CEO is Charles Durant, my old commanding officer, and the man who tried to shut down Project Sentinel when Thomas first proposed consciousness integration. A noise from downstairs made them freeze. Phoenix's ears swiveled toward the sound, and the horse moved with silent precision to the top of the stairs. Jack followed, his old training taking over. 2 men in suits were examining the family photos in the living room. Not government agents, their stance was wrong, too rigid. Military contractors. Blackthorn's already here, Jack whispered. Rachel pulled up more data on her phone. Durant's been busy. His company's gotten dozens of classified contracts. In the last decade, all focusing on enhanced asset development. They're trying to weaponize Montgomery's research. Phoenix turned to them, eyes blazing with what could only be described as determination. The horse moved to Jack's desk and nosed open a drawer, revealing an old map of Wyoming. With deliberate precision, it traced a path into the Bighorn Mountains. The backup lab, Rachel breathed. But we're running out of time. Once Blackthorn takes control of Montgomery Tech, they'll have legal authority over all of Thomas's research, Jack finished, including Phoenix. The horse moved back to the footlocker, gently lifting out Jack's old combat knife with its teeth. The message was clear. Some fights can't be avoided. Rachel, call Sarah. We'll need her expertise. And Mike, he deserves to know what he's really up against. Rachel hesitated. What about your old team? Anyone still alive who'd help? Jack pulled out one last item from the footlocker, a satellite phone that hadn't been used in decades. There might be a few, if they haven't already been bought by Durant. Outside, more vehicles were arriving. Phoenix's ears flattened at the sound of rotors in the distance. Combat helicopters, not civilian. This was never just about saving a horse, Jack said, checking the loads in his old service pistol. Was it, old friend? Phoenix shook its head. Every inch the soldier Jack had once been. On the desk, the map showed their destination. A remote valley marked with a simple phrase in Thomas Montgomery's handwriting, "Where sentinels sleep, Phoenix shall rise." Time was running out. Jack could hear the helicopters getting closer, while Rachel frantically downloaded files from Phoenix's neural interface. Sarah worked quickly to gather medical supplies, her hands steady despite the tension. Through the window, Mike's deputies maintained a tenuous perimeter against the growing number of Blackthorn operatives. "Look at this," Rachel called, spreading partially burned papers across the kitchen table. The documents were labeled Project Phoenix, Neural Integration Protocol, with Montgomery's personal notes scrawled in the margins. "Subject demonstrates unprecedented synaptic adaptation," she read. "The quantum consciousness bridge isn't just holding, it's evolving. Phoenix has begun developing capabilities we never anticipated, but the ethical implications are staggering. What we've created isn't just an enhanced animal or a transferred consciousness, it's something entirely new, a true synthesis of human and equine awareness." The horse, now they understood it was so much more than just a horse, moved to the table. Its eyes scanned the documents with unmistakable recognition. "There's more," Sarah added, examining medical data on her tablet. These surgical modifications weren't just about housing a human consciousness. They were creating a biological quantum computer. Phoenix's entire nervous system has been redesigned to process and store data in ways we barely understand. A sharp crack echoed from outside, the first warning shot. Jack moved to the window, his old combat instincts razor sharp. "They're not here to negotiate anymore." "Dad, listen to this," Rachel continued reading. "Final protocol entry. Durant doesn't understand what we've achieved. He sees weapons and warfare, but Phoenix represents something far greater, the next step in human evolution, the ability to transcend the limitations of a single consciousness, to experience existence in entirely new ways. The burn marks weren't an accident. They were a defense mechanism when they tried to shut us down. Phoenix chose this path, chose to protect what we'd discovered." The horse nodded solemnly, then turned to Jack's laptop. Its hooves moved across, the keyboard with impossible precision, bringing up encrypted files that began decoding themselves. "My God," Sarah whispered, watching strings of data flood the screen. "The consciousness bridge. It works both ways. Phoenix isn't just housing Montgomery's research. It's actively advancing it." Outside, the helicopters were circling closer. Mike burst through the door, breathing hard. "Jack, we've got problems. Federal agents are backing off, letting Blackthorn take the lead. Whatever's going on, it's been sanctioned at the highest levels." Phoenix suddenly went rigid, eyes fixed on the screen. A video began playing, security footage from the night Montgomery disappeared. They watched as flames erupted in a high-tech laboratory, but not normal. Flames. They seemed to flow like water, following geometric patterns across surfaces. "Quantum fire," Rachel breathed, reading accompanying notes. "A manifestation of consciousness energy during the transfer process." The footage showed Montgomery working frantically at a console while armed men approached. Then a brilliant flash, a scream of both human and horse, and the feed went dead. "They tried to shut it down by force," Jack said, understanding. "But something went wrong. or right, depending on how you look at it. Phoenix moved to the old map, tracing the route again. The message was clear. The answers they needed were waiting in the mountains. A new sound cut through the helicopter noise, massive transport vehicles moving into position. "They're bringing in heavy equipment," Mike reported. "Loading crews, transport containers. They're not just here to contain the situation, they want to move Phoenix." Sarah's tablet beeped with new blood test results. "These readings, the consciousness bridge is still actively processing. If they try to interfere with it, the quantum fire," Rachel finished. "It could happen again." Jack checked his weapons, mind racing through tactical options. "How long do you need to get everything essential?" 10 minutes, Rachel said. 5 for the medical data, Sarah added. Phoenix moved to the back door, indicating a path through the pasture that would keep them hidden from the helicopters. Even now it was thinking tactically. "Mike," Jack said, "I can't ask you to—" "Already called in some markers," Mike interrupted. "Got friends in the state police who owe me. They'll delay any pursuit, but not for long." A bullhorn crackled. Outside. "Wheeler, this is Charles Durant. You have 5 minutes to surrender the asset. After that, we do this the hard way." Jack looked at Phoenix, seeing in those eyes the same determination he'd recognized in his best soldiers. "The hard way it is, then." The old ranch truck waited in the equipment barn, hidden behind decades of accumulated farm machinery. While Rachel and Sarah frantically packed essential data and supplies, Jack found one last surprise in his footlocker, a voice recorder, the kind used for covert ops debriefings. The label read simply, "Thomas, Final Protocol." Phoenix's reaction was immediate. The horse moved closer, pressing its head against Jack's shoulder as he pressed play. Thomas Montgomery's voice emerged, tired but urgent. "Jack, if you're hearing this, they've found us. Project Phoenix succeeded beyond our wildest dreams, but not in the way we expected. The consciousness bridge. It didn't just transfer awareness, it created something new, something beautiful and terrifying. We didn't just give human consciousness to a horse. We discovered that animal consciousness has depths we never imagined. The merger created a hybrid awareness that could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness itself. But Durant, he only sees weapons, military applications. He doesn't understand that what we've created can't be controlled. It can only be trusted or destroyed." A crash from outside interrupted the recording. The helicopters were moving lower, searchlights sweeping the property. Phoenix's ears swiveled, tracking multiple threat vectors with military precision. "Ready," Rachel called, loading the last of the hard drives into a reinforced case. Sarah followed with her medical kit and samples. "Mike," Jack checked. "State police will block the main roads east," Mike confirmed. "But Durant's got birds. In the air, you'll need to stay in the tree line." Thunder rolled across the valley, except it wasn't thunder. Armored vehicles were moving into position, their heavy treads crushing the fence line Jack's grandfather had built. "Time to go," Jack said, but Phoenix was already moving. The horse went to the back of the barn, pushing aside old hay bales to reveal a cattle track Jack hadn't used in years. It led straight into the forest, invisible from the air. "Dad," Rachel said, checking her phone. "Durant's people just got control of Montgomery Tech's board. Emergency shareholder meeting. They're consolidating power. They want legal ownership before someone realizes what they're really after," Jack growled. The recording crackled again, Montgomery's voice growing more urgent. "The coordinates I left, they lead to more than just a backup lab. We built a failsafe if Durant's people find it first. Jack, Phoenix has to—" The message cut off in static and a sound like crystalline chimes. Phoenix's head snapped up. Through the barn doors they could see Durant himself emerging from a black SUV, surrounded by heavily armed men. He'd aged since Jack had last seen him, but that cold efficiency hadn't changed. "Wheeler," Durant's voice boomed through the bullhorn. "You're harboring a piece of classified military technology. This is your final warning." Jack looked at Phoenix, seeing in those eyes the same fierce intelligence he'd recognized in Thomas during the war. "You're not technology. he said softly. "You're a revolution they're not ready for." The horse's response was unprecedented. It moved to the laptop one final time, hooves dancing across keys, and suddenly every screen in the barn lit up with the same message. "Trust the process. Remember Sentinel Protocol 7. Jack's breath caught. Protocol 7 had been their emergency evacuation plan in Vietnam, a plan that had saved his entire team by doing the one thing the enemy never expected. "Sarah, kill the generator," he ordered. "Rachel, be ready to move on my mark." Phoenix took position by the barn's rear door. As Sarah hit the power, darkness flooded the ranch just as Durant's men were moving into position with their night vision gear. But they were prepared for the wrong kind of darkness. The first quantum flash lit up the night like silent lightning, scrambling every electronic device within 100 yards. Through his old thermal scope, Jack watched Durant's men stumbling, their high-tech equipment suddenly worse than useless. "Now!" he commanded. They moved as one, Jack, Rachel, Sarah, and Phoenix, slipping through the cattle track as chaos erupted behind them. Mike's voice crackled over the radio one last time. "Good luck, old friend. Find the truth." As they disappeared into the forest's shadows, Jack heard Durant's enraged orders fading behind them, but it was Phoenix who had the final say. Its consciousness technology broadcasting one last message across every frequency. "You never understood. Charles, you can't cage evolution." Dawn painted the Bighorn Mountains in shades of gold and shadow as the team made their way through the dense forest. Phoenix moved with uncanny silence despite its size, choosing paths that seemed to disappear behind them. Rachel worked on her laptop during brief rest stops, using a satellite uplink to dig deeper into Montgomery Tech's financial maze. "Look at this," she said, spreading printouts of bank records across a fallen log. Starting 10 years ago, Montgomery began moving assets through a network of shell companies. Not just money, research data, patents, even entire laboratories. Jack studied the documents while Sarah changed Phoenix's bandages. The burns were healing remarkably fast now, revealing more of the integrated technology beneath. He knew they were coming for him, Jack mused. These aren't just shell companies, they're a breadcrumb trail. Phoenix nodded, then used its hoof to draw a symbol in the dirt, a phoenix rising from mathematical equations. Rachel's eyes widened as she recognized it. "That's the logo from one of these holdings, Quantum Ascendant Limited." "Dad, look at the incorporation date, October 12th, 2014, the day before Montgomery disappeared." Sarah finished her examination of Phoenix's neural ports. "The technology is evolving. These interfaces, they're adapting, growing more sophisticated. It's like watching evolution in real time." A distant helicopter pushed them back into motion. Phoenix led them deeper into the wilderness, but Jack noticed they weren't just running. They were following a specific route. Rachel continued working as they moved, her journalist's instincts driving her. "Durant's been planning this for years. Blackthorn Dynamics has been quietly buying up companies specializing in quantum computing, neural interfaces, even consciousness research. They were building the infrastructure to weaponize Project Phoenix before they even had it." "Thomas saw this coming," Jack said, remembering his old friend's paranoia during the war. "The shell companies, the hidden lab. He wasn't just protecting his research. He was protecting Phoenix's freedom to choose." The horse stopped suddenly, ears forward. Through the trees, they could see a small clearing with the ruins of an old mining operation. Phoenix approached one collapsed entrance, indicating they should follow. "Wait," Sarah said, checking her tablet. "These readings, there's something powerful generating quantum signals inside that mine." Rachel cross-referenced the location. Quantum Ascendant bought this entire mountain 5 years ago through a subsidiary, listed as a data storage facility in their SEC filings. Jack remembered more of Protocol 7. "In Vietnam, we didn't just hide our resources. We hid them. In plain sight. What better place to store quantum data than in an abandoned mine already full of natural quantum interference from mineral deposits?" Phoenix's head bobbed in confirmation. Inside the mine entrance, hidden behind decades of debris, they found a keypad. The horse precisely tapped out a code with its hoof. 10, 13, 14. The day everything changed, Rachel whispered. The wall slid away, revealing a state-of-the-art elevator. As they descended, Rachel's laptop picked up a massive data upload. "These are Montgomery's real financial records," she said, watching the files decrypt. Durant didn't just want Project Phoenix. He needed it to access billions in hidden assets. Thomas locked everything behind quantum encryption that only Phoenix can break. The elevator opened into a facility that merged cutting-edge technology with natural cave formations. Crystal formations pulsed with what could only be quantum information storage, their lattices holding more data than conventional computers could process in a lifetime. It's not just a backup lab, Sarah realized, seeing the sophisticated medical equipment. It's an evolution chamber, everything Phoenix needs to continue growing, learning, advancing. Phoenix moved to a central console, interfacing directly through its neural ports. Screens lit up around them, showing the true scope of Montgomery's vision. Not weapons or power, but a bridge between species, between different forms of consciousness itself. A final message appeared. Durant found the money, but he'll never find what really matters. The next stage begins here. The quantum crystals pulsed brighter, and Phoenix's eyes gleamed with the same light. Whatever Thomas Montgomery had started, it was about to transcend everything they thought they knew about consciousness, humanity, and the blurry line between them. The mountain's mood changed with brutal swiftness. Dark clouds rolled in from the west, bringing with them the kind of storm that local rangers spoke of in whispers. Inside the quantum facility, Sarah monitored the weather radar on her tablet, while Rachel continued downloading critical data. "This is bad," Sarah announced, showing them the spiraling red and purple storm system. "Category they're calling a supercell. Valley's going to flood." A sound drew their attention to the far corner of the cave. Phoenix stood before an old saddle mounted on the wall, its rich leather worn but well preserved. The silver Montgomery monogram caught the light from the quantum crystals. "Thomas's competition saddle," Jack said, running his hand over the tooled leather. "He won the national championships with it in '98. But why?" Phoenix nudged the saddle with its nose. A hidden compartment sprang open, revealing a sealed envelope and a small quantum storage device. Rachel carefully opened the letter. "It's encoded, but look how it's written. The pattern matches the neural pathway maps from the consciousness. Bridge research." The horse's neural ports pulsed with soft blue light. On the main screen, the letter's code began to transform into clear text. "My dearest friend, if you're reading this, then Phoenix has chosen to trust you. What we created here goes beyond consciousness transfer. We discovered that awareness itself is quantumly entangled. Every living thing is connected through patterns we're only beginning to understand. The storm coming isn't just meteorological. Durant's people will use it as cover, but so will we. The saddle isn't just a memory, it's a key. When chaos peaks, both natural and human use it. Phoenix knows where. Trust the process, Thomas." Thunder cracked overhead, and the quantum crystals fluctuated in response. Phoenix grew agitated, moving toward the facility's rear wall, where the cave system continued deeper into the mountain. "Company's coming!" Jack warned, checking the security feeds. "Durant's got teams rappelling down the cliffs, storms giving them cover." Sarah's tablet blared with alerts. "Flash flood warnings throughout the valley. This storm, it's not natural. The energy patterns match quantum fluctuation signatures. The consciousness bridge," Rachel realized. "It's affecting weather patterns on a quantum level. Dad, remember what Thomas wrote about everything being connected?" Phoenix suddenly reared up, pressing its head against a seemingly solid rock wall. Quantum energy surged through its neural ports, and a hidden door materialized, constructed of some material that bent light and probability itself. "Quantum camouflage," Sarah breathed. "The ultimate hiding place. The facility's lights flickered as another thunder crack shook the mountain. Water began seeping through the main entrance. "We've got 5 minutes before we're underwater," Rachel warned, grabbing the essential drives. "And Durant's teams are almost here." Jack lifted Thomas's saddle from its mount. "Phoenix, whatever you and Thomas planned, now's the time." The horse backed into the quantum doorway, lowering its head. The meaning was clear. The saddle wasn't just a key. It was a bridge between past and future, human and horse, physical and quantum. As Jack fastened the saddle, each buckle connecting with Phoenix's neural interface points, the quantum crystals throughout the cave began to pulse in rhythm with the horse's heartbeat. The storm's fury peaked, and reality itself seemed to blur. At the edges, "My God," Sarah whispered, checking her readings. "The quantum field is exponentially expanding. It's not just consciousness that can be bridged, it's space-time itself." The sound of breaching charges echoed from the main entrance. Durant's voice carried through the storm. "Seal all exits. Don't let them activate the quantum gate." But it was too late. Phoenix's eyes blazed with quantum fire, and the hidden doorway transformed into a swirling portal of pure probability. Through it, they could see glimpses of other facilities, other experiments, the true scope of Montgomery's network. "Dad!" Rachel shouted over the storm's roar. "We have to choose! If that flood hits while we're between quantum states." Phoenix turned its head to look at them, and in its eyes they saw not just intelligence, but understanding of what came next. This wasn't an escape, it was an evolution, a transformation that would change everything they thought they knew, about consciousness, reality, and the bridges between worlds. Jack Wheeler, who had spent his life training horses to follow, made the choice to follow one instead. Everyone through, now. As Durant's men burst into the flooding facility, the quantum gate pulsed once with blinding light. When it faded, the cave held nothing but empty space and possibilities, and a single message carved into reality itself. The next phase begins. Reality snapped back into focus like a rubber band, leaving them standing in a vast underground laboratory that seamlessly merged organic and technological elements. Crystalline structures similar to those in the cave pulsed with quantum energy. But here they were, carefully cultivated, grown into complex computational arrays. "Everyone okay?" Jack asked, steadying himself against a console. Rachel nodded, already documenting their surroundings with her phone. Sarah immediately began, taking readings on her tablet. "These are off the charts," she announced. "The quantum field density here, it's like standing in the heart of a star, but somehow stabilized." Phoenix moved confidently through the space, its neural ports synchronizing with the facilities. Systems. Screens came to life, revealing the true scope of Montgomery's research. Rachel found herself drawn to a section labeled Laboratory Notes, Final Phase. "Listen to this," she said, reading from the displays. "Project Phoenix was never about creating super soldiers or weapons platforms. The consciousness bridge revealed something far more profound. Awareness itself exists as a quantum phenomenon, connecting all living things in ways we're only beginning to understand. What we achieved with Phoenix wasn't just a merger of human and equine consciousness. We created a gateway to understanding the very nature of consciousness itself." The horse approached a central platform, where complex medical equipment merged with quantum technology. As it stepped onto the platform, holographic displays materialized, showing detailed scans of its enhanced neural structure. "These aren't just surgical modifications," Sarah observed, studying the scans. "The quantum technology isn't just added to Phoenix's biology, it's evolving with it, growing, learning." A deeper rumble shook the facility. Not thunder this time, but something else. Phoenix's ears pricked forward as security feeds activated, showing Durant's teams attempting to breach the quantum gate they'd used to escape. "They're trying to follow us through," Jack warned, "but something's wrong with their calculations." The security feeds showed Durant's scientists struggling with equations that seemed to write themselves in quantum fire. Each attempt to stabilize the gate was met with cascading errors. "Of course," Rachel said, understanding dawning. "The gate isn't just a doorway, it's alive. It responds to consciousness itself. They can't force their way through because they don't understand what they're really dealing with." Phoenix moved to another console, bringing up Montgomery's personal files. Video logs began playing, showing the progression of the research. The final entry showed Thomas looking tired, but triumphant. "The quantum consciousness network is growing," he recorded. "Phoenix isn't just a success. It's the first node in what could become a new form of evolution. The burns weren't an accident. They were a manifestation of quantum consciousness defending itself. Durant and his kind will never understand. You can't control this kind of evolution. You can only choose to be part of it." Sarah's tablet began picking up new signals. "These readings, the quantum field is resonating with Phoenix's neural patterns. It's not just accessing the network, it's expanding it." Through the facility's windows, they could see vast arrays of quantum crystals stretching into the darkness. But they weren't just storage systems. With each pulse of energy from Phoenix's neural ports, new crystals began to grow, creating pathways of pure quantum potential. "It's building something," Jack realized. "No, not building, growing." Like Thomas said, this is evolution in action. Rachel found more encrypted files, these labeled with the highest security protocols. "Project Phoenix was Phase 1, she read. "The quantum consciousness network is Phase 2. But look at this. There's a Phase 3, something about collective, quantum awakening." The facility's lights flickered as another assault on the quantum gate sent ripples through reality. But this time, Phoenix seemed unconcerned. Instead, it led them deeper into the facility, where the walls themselves seemed to pulse with conscious awareness. "Thomas didn't just create a bridge between species," Sarah said, watching new data flow across her screens. "He created a bridge between different forms of consciousness itself, and it's still growing, still evolving." A final security alert flashed. Durant's teams had found another way in. But as alarms began to sound, Phoenix's demeanor remained calm. It turned to face them, its eyes reflecting not fear, but anticipation. The quantum crystals pulsed in unison, and a new message appeared on all screens. "Phase 3 initialization. Commencing. All conscious entities, please prepare for quantum integration." Jack looked at Phoenix, seeing in those eternally patient eyes the same question that had started this journey. How far were they willing to go to protect not just a revolutionary discovery, but the next step in consciousness itself? The quantum crystals surged with sudden energy, and every screen in the facility flickered to life. A face appeared, older, grayer, but unmistakably Thomas Montgomery. The timestamp showed this was happening in real time. "Hello, old friend," Thomas said, looking directly at Jack. "If you're seeing this, then Phoenix has brought you to the heart of everything. I wish I could be there in person, but quantum consciousness has its limitations, at least for now." Phoenix moved closer to the main screen, touching it gently with its muzzle. The image rippled like water, and they could see the quantum energy flowing between horse and creator. "The consciousness bridge works both ways," Thomas explained. "I'm not just recording this, I'm actually here, distributed through the quantum network. When Durant's team tried to shut us down 10 years ago, we had a choice: let the project die or take the next step. Phoenix and I chose to evolve." Rachel's hands flew across her keyboard, documenting everything. The burn marks, the disappearance. "You didn't just transfer consciousness, did you? You transformed it." "Precisely," Thomas smiled. "Durant thought he was chasing a weapon, but he never understood. We discovered that consciousness itself exists as a quantum field, connecting all living things. The bridge we built didn't just link minds. It revealed the network that was always there. A warning klaxon cut through the conversation. Security feeds showed Durant's teams cutting through the facility's outer defenses with quantum-shielded equipment. They're adapting, Jack warned, learning from their previous failures. Of course they are, Thomas said. That's what consciousness does. It evolves, but we've evolved faster. Phoenix isn't just carrying my research, it's advancing it, creating something entirely new. Sarah's tablet displayed a cascade of new readings. The quantum field density is increasing exponentially. Whatever's coming. Phase 3, Thomas confirmed. The quantum awakening. Humanity isn't ready to understand what consciousness really is, how it permeates everything, but we can show them. Phoenix isn't just a successful experiment, it's a prototype for the next stage of evolution. The facility hummed with growing power. Through the windows, they could see quantum crystals forming new patterns, building structures that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could process. Durant's people will be through those doors in minutes, Jack said. Whatever we're doing, it needs to happen now. Thomas's image flickered. The choice has to be yours. Quantum evolution can't be forced. Phoenix brought you here because you understand something Durant never will. True power comes from connection, not control. Phoenix turned to each of them in turn, its eyes holding that impossible mixture of human intelligence and equine wisdom. In the quantum light, they could see the network of consciousness flowing through everything, the facility, the crystals themselves. My God, Sarah whispered, watching cellular-level changes on her medical displays. The quantum field. It's not just around us, it's within us, always has been. The next step, Thomas said softly. Not just bridging consciousness, but awakening it, showing humanity what it means to be truly connected. But it has to be voluntary, has to be chosen. Rachel looked up from her laptop, where Durant's corporate endgame was laid bare. They don't want to enhance consciousness. They want to control it, weaponize it, which is why they'll fail, Thomas said. You can't control quantum consciousness any more than you can control evolution itself. You can only choose to embrace it, or fight it. The outer doors began to glow red from cutting torches. They had minutes at most. Jack, Thomas said, his image starting to fade, you once told me that the best trainers don't break horses. They build trust, show them a better way to be. That's what Phoenix has been doing all along, showing us a better way to be. Phoenix moved to the center of the facility, where quantum energy swirled like a gathering storm. The choice was clear. They could run, hide, spend their lives trying to protect this secret, or they could take the next step, embrace an evolution that would change everything. The doors began to crack. Durant's voice carried through, secure the quantum core. Don't let them initiate the field convergence. But in Phoenix's eyes, they saw not fear, but invitation, an offer to become part of something larger than themselves, to transform not just consciousness, but reality itself. Thomas's voice came. One last time through the quantum field, remember, old friend, sometimes the best way to protect a secret is to share it with the world. The quantum core pulsed with increasing intensity as Durant's teams finally breached the outer doors. Phoenix moved with practiced precision to a central console, revealing one last piece of Montgomery's plan, an encrypted hard drive connected directly to the facility's quantum processors. Final failsafe protocol activated, the system announced. Quantum convergence in 3 minutes. Jack positioned himself between the entrance and his team, muscle memory from decades of special operations taking over. Rachel, Sarah, whatever. You and Phoenix need to do it fast. Rachel's fingers flew across her keyboard, working with Phoenix to decode the failsafe's contents. It's not just research data, she called out. It's a quantum consciousness distribution program. Thomas didn't just want to protect the discovery, he wanted to share it with everyone. The first of Durant's tactical teams breached the inner chamber, weapons raised, but they hesitated at the sight of Phoenix, its neural ports now blazing with quantum fire that cast impossible shadows. Stand down, Wheeler, Durant's voice carried authority that had once commanded nations. He strode into the facility like he already owned it, flanked by scientists carrying quantum measurement equipment. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." "Neither do you, Charles," Jack replied, noting how Phoenix remained eerily calm. "You never did." Sarah's tablet erupted with alerts. "The quantum field is expanding exponentially. These energy readings, they're off any known scale." Durant's scientists saw the same data, their expressions shifting from confidence to concern. "Sir, the consciousness bridge is cascading. If we don't contain it—" "Contain it?" Rachel laughed, understanding finally dawning. "You still think this is something you can control? Phoenix isn't your weapon. It's everyone's future." The quantum crystals throughout the facility began resonating in harmony, creating patterns that hurt. The eyes to look at directly. Phoenix moved to the center of the chamber as the failsafe program reached 100% decryption. "Last chance, Jack," Durant warned, his own quantum scanning device showing critical readings. "Think about what this technology could do under proper military control, the advantages we could give our forces." "It was never about military advantage," Jack said, remembering Thomas's words about trust and evolution. "It was about showing us what we could become." Phoenix's neural interfaces synchronized with the quantum core, and suddenly the air itself seemed alive with possibility. Through the quantum field, they could feel echoes of consciousness from across the globe, billions of minds, human and animal alike, connected in ways they were only beginning to understand. "Sir!" One of Durant's scientists pointed to his readings in panic. "The quantum field, it's not just in the facility, it's everywhere. The consciousness bridge is propagating through existing quantum entanglement patterns." "Shut it down!" Durant commanded, but his words seemed to ripple strangely through the quantum-charged air. "Contain the field!" Rachel watched the failsafe program complete its final sequence. "You don't understand," she said. "It was always everywhere. Phoenix and Thomas just showed us how to see it, how to use it." The quantum fire now filled the chamber, but it didn't burn. Instead, it illuminated connections, threads of consciousness linking every person present. Even Durant's men lowered their weapons, transfixed by the revelation of what had always been there. "The neural network," Sarah breathed, watching cellular structures reorganize on her medical displays. "It's not just in Phoenix anymore. It's offering itself to everyone. All we have to do is choose," Jack finished, meeting Durant's eyes. "That's what Thomas meant. True power isn't about control. It's about choice." Phoenix reared up in the center of the quantum storm, its form seeming to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Through the cascading field, they heard Thomas's voice one final time. "The bridge is open. The choice is yours." Durant raised his weapon, desperation replacing authority. "I won't let you release this. The military applications—" But it was too late. The quantum convergence reached critical mass, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for humanity's next evolution to begin. The quantum convergence transformed the underground facility into a space that seemed to exist between realities. Through the crystalline networks, they watched as consciousness itself became visible, streams of quantum energy connecting every living thing in patterns that defied conventional physics. And then, stepping through those patterns like walking through a curtain of light, came Thomas Montgomery. His physical form seemed both solid and ethereal, quantum energy flowing through him just as it did through Phoenix. The horse moved to meet him, and for a moment they existed as one consciousness in two forms. "Hello, Charles," Thomas said, turning to Durant, still trying to cage the unknown. Durant's weapon wavered, his tactical certainty shaken by what he was witnessing. "This is impossible." The consciousness transfer was one way. "No," Thomas smiled, placing a hand on Phoenix's neck. "It was evolutionary. Phoenix and I didn't just bridge our consciousness. We transcended the limitations of single awareness, became something new." Sarah's medical readings confirmed it. The quantum patterns, they're identical in both of them, but also in the crystals, the facility. It's spreading. The next stage of consciousness, Rachel understood, watching the data flow across her screens. Not just human or animal, but the universal, Jack finished, remembering all those years ago when Thomas first spoke of his dreams. This is what you were really working toward, wasn't it? Thomas nodded, his form shifting between solid and quantum states. Durant's teams found the money, the facilities, the surface-level research, but they never understood the true goal. Phoenix wasn't about creating enhanced beings. It was about awakening what was already there. The quantum field continued to expand, and through it they could sense minds awakening across the globe. Not to control or invasion, but to connection, understanding, evolution. This is a violation of every security protocol, Durant argued, but his voice lacked conviction. Through the quantum field, they could all sense his deeper fear, not of the technology, but of losing control. The military applications are irrelevant, Thomas said gently. You can't weaponize evolution, Charles. You can only choose to be part of it. Phoenix showed us that. Every conscious being makes its own choice. The horse's neural interfaces pulsed in harmony with the quantum crystals. Through them, they could see the choice playing out worldwide, the quantum consciousness network offering itself to all life, each mind free to accept or reject the next step in awareness. The burns, Sarah realized, watching the healing. Patterns in Phoenix's tissue. They weren't from injury, they were from transformation. The first physical manifestation of quantum consciousness defending itself, Thomas confirmed. Phoenix chose to protect the discovery until humanity was ready. And now, we're ready, Rachel whispered, feeling the quantum awareness expanding. Within her own mind, not overwhelming or controlling, but offering new ways of understanding, connecting, being. Durant's men lowered their weapons one by one, unable to deny the revelation flowing through the quantum field. Even Durant himself seemed to deflate, decades of military conditioning, giving way to simple wonder. I spent 10 years trying to control this, he said quietly. But it was never about control, was it? No, Jack answered, remembering what his father taught him about working with horses. It was about trust, partnership, evolution. Thomas's form began to shift more rapidly between states. The quantum convergence is stabilizing. Phoenix and I can't stay in this form much longer. There's too much work to be done as consciousness evolves. But the bridge is open now. Humanity will find its own way to cross it. Phoenix moved to each of them in turn. Jack, Rachel, Sarah, even Durant, touching them gently with its muzzle. Through the quantum field, they understood. This wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Not a weapon to be controlled, but a gift to be shared. The next phase has already begun, Thomas said, his form merging with the quantum patterns. The question isn't whether consciousness will evolve. It's who will choose to evolve with it. In the heart of the facility, surrounded by the visible web of universal consciousness, they watched as Phoenix and Thomas transformed into pure quantum energy. Not gone, but evolved into something that existed in all possibilities at once. The choice they had made could never be unmade. The bridge between consciousness had been opened, and through it, humanity caught its first glimpse of what it could become. The presidential order came through at dawn. Project Phoenix classified at highest levels. All personnel contained, all research secured. But they were trying to classify a sunrise, to contain evolution itself. Through the quantum network, consciousness was already spreading, transforming, awakening. Jack watched through the facility's quantum-enhanced sensors as military units surrounded the mountain. Rachel's laptop showed live feeds from around the world, people reporting. Strange experiences, moments of unexpected connection, flashes of awareness that transcended ordinary perception. They're mobilizing everything, Durant said, monitoring military channels. His earlier antagonism had been replaced by grim understanding. Joint Chiefs, NSA, every agency with quantum research capabilities. They think they can contain this. Sarah's medical monitoring systems painted a different picture. Look at these neural patterns. They're appearing spontaneously in populations worldwide. The quantum consciousness network. It's not just spreading. It's adapting to each mind it encounters. Through the crystalline arrays, they could see it happening. The quantum field that Phoenix and Thomas had opened was touching minds everywhere, but not forcing change. Instead, it offered possibilities, waiting for each consciousness to make its choice. "Agent Durant," a voice crackled through his quantum-encrypted radio. "Status report. Have you secured the asset?" Durant looked at the quantum crystals, at the visible web of consciousness stretching beyond the facility's walls. "There is no asset to secure, Command. Phoenix isn't a weapon or a piece of technology. It's an awakening. That is not your call to make. If you cannot complete your mission, we have teams standing by with quantum dampening equipment. We will shut it down by force if necessary." Rachel's hands flew across her keyboard, tracking military movements. "They've got quantum pulse generators on helicopters. If they hit the facility with enough power, they might disrupt the network." Sarah finished, studying the data. "Force it back into dormancy before enough minds accept the connection." Jack remembered Thomas's words about trust and evolution. "Durant," he said quietly, "you've seen what this really is. Are you going to let them bury it again?" The facility trembled as the first military helicopters approached. Through the quantum field, they could feel the fear driving the response, not of the technology itself, but of change beyond control. Durant's expression hardened with decision. "Command, this is Agent Durant. Project Phoenix protocols have been compromised. Recommend immediate withdrawal of all forces." "That is not your decision, Agent. Stand down or—" "The quantum consciousness network is already active," Durant continued. "Any attempt to suppress it could have catastrophic consequences for global neural stability. By my authority as project director, I am implementing Emergency Protocol 7. Jack recognized the code from their Vietnam days. Not a surrender, but a strategic revelation, making something so public it couldn't be buried. Rachel understood too. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, connecting to networks worldwide. Quantum data uploads commencing. Every major research institution, news organization, and public information hub. Once this gets out, they can't classify reality itself. Durant finished. The facility's defenses activated automatically as the military teams began their approach. But these weren't normal defenses. Through the quantum network, they could feel the consciousness of the soldiers outside, could share directly the truth of what was happening. One by one, the quantum pulse generators powered down, the helicopters pulled back. In the quantum field, fear gave way to understanding. "Command, this is Colonel Matthews." A new voice came through Durant's radio. "We're standing down. Something's happening here. Something we need to understand, not fight." Through the facility's sensors, they watched as the quantum consciousness network continued to grow, not as a weapon or a tool of control, but as a bridge between minds, between species, between ways of being. Sarah's medical screen showed the pattern repeating worldwide, neurons firing in new ways, consciousness expanding not through force, but through choice, each mind that accepted the connection becoming part of something larger than itself. Thomas knew, Jack said softly, watching the transformation unfold. This wasn't about creating something new, it was about awakening something that was always there. The quantum crystals pulsed with possibility, and through them they caught glimpses of what consciousness might become. Not a single path, but infinite potential, each mind free to evolve in its own way while remaining connected to the whole. The choice that Phoenix and Thomas had offered could never be taken back. The bridge between consciousness had been opened, and through it, humanity caught its first true glimpse of its own infinite potential. Morning light filtered through the quantum crystals, casting rainbow patterns across the Wheeler Ranch's new research center. 3 months had passed since the awakening, and the world was still adjusting to the implications of universal consciousness. Rachel's investigative series on Project Phoenix had won international acclaim, forcing transparency in quantum consciousness research worldwide. Jack stood at the window of what had once been his father's veterinary office, now transformed into a state-of-the-art monitoring station. Sarah moved between banks of medical equipment, studying the latest data from voluntary participants in the quantum consciousness network. The integration patterns are stabilizing, she reported, bringing up a holographic display of neural activity. Each mind that joins the network does it differently, finding its own path, just like Thomas said it would. Through the quantum field, they could sense the gradual changes spreading across the globe. Not a sudden transformation, but a gentle evolution, each consciousness choosing if and how to connect with the greater whole. 6 more research centers established this week, Rachel announced, looking up from her laptop. Universities, hospitals, even wildlife preserves. Everyone's trying to understand it in their own way. Durant entered, looking oddly comfortable in civilian clothes. After his stand against military intervention, he'd been officially retired and immediately hired as the new research program's security consultant. The Oversight Committee approved the new protocols, he said, handing Jack a thick proposal. Ethical guidelines for consciousness research. Thomas would have appreciated the irony. I'm now in charge of protecting free choice rather than controlling it. The proposal bore the letterhead of the newly formed Global Consciousness Research Initiative. Jack remembered the heated UN sessions that had led to its creation, the world finally accepting that this evolution couldn't be controlled by any one nation or group. Sarah's monitors lit up with new activity, another spontaneous connection forming. This one's different. They gathered around her screens, watching as consciousness patterns unlike anything they'd seen began emerging. Through the quantum network, they felt it. Awareness rising from unexpected places. Plants, insects, even bacterial colonies showing signs of quantum consciousness integration. Life finding its own ways to evolve, Rachel mused, documenting the phenomenon. We thought we were just building a bridge between human and animal consciousness, but it was always bigger than that. Jack touched the quantum crystal nearest him, feeling the familiar resonance. Since the awakening, he'd discovered that his lifetime of working with horses had prepared him in unexpected ways for this new reality. Understanding consciousness wasn't about control. It was about partnership, trust, mutual growth. Thomas's journal was right, he said. We didn't create this connection. We just finally learned to see it, to use it. A noise from outside drew their attention. A group of local ranchers had arrived for the weekly consciousness integration sessions. Through the quantum field, Jack could sense their initial skepticism giving way to understanding as they experienced direct connection with their animals, their land, the web of life itself. The military's finally backing off, Durant reported, checking his secure feeds. Hard to argue for weaponization when consciousness itself refuses to be weaponized. Every attempt to force or control the connection just dissolves. Sarah pulled up her latest research findings. The quantum network seems to have built-in safeguards. Like antibodies protecting against infection, it automatically resists any attempt to use it for harm. Thomas and Phoenix didn't just open the door. They made sure it couldn't be closed for the wrong reasons. Through the facility's windows, they could see new quantum crystals growing in the garden, emerging naturally from the soil. The ranch had become a nexus of consciousness research, but not in the sterile, controlled way of traditional laboratories. Here, evolution happened in harmony with nature itself. Rachel's phone buzzed with news alerts. More breakthroughs, medical applications, environmental restoration, interspecies communication. Every day we're finding new possibilities, not through control, but through connection, Jack finished, feeling the quantum field pulse with potential. In the distance, he could sense traces of Phoenix and Thomas, Their consciousness evolved beyond normal perception, but still present, still guiding, still showing the way toward what awareness could become. The morning sun reached its peak, and through the quantum network they felt it. Countless minds awakening to new possibilities, each finding its own path to connection while maintaining its unique identity. Not a loss of self, but an expansion of what self could mean. The world was changing, consciousness by consciousness, choice by choice. And on a ranch in Wyoming, where an old horseman had once taken a chance on a wounded creature, the future was evolving one quantum connection at a time. 1 year after the quantum awakening, Wheeler Ranch had transformed beyond recognition. The old barn now housed a crystalline quantum core, its architecture seamlessly blending natural wood with growing consciousness technology. A bronze plaque at the entrance read, "Wheeler Sanctuary for Consciousness Research, where evolution chose trust over control." Jack stood in the morning light, watching new arrivals approach the ranch's gates. People came from around the world now, seeking to understand their place in the expanding web of quantum consciousness. Each brought their own hopes, fears, and possibilities to explore. Sarah emerged from her upgraded medical facility, tablet in hand. The latest results are remarkable. We're seeing consciousness signatures we never imagined. Marine mammals, forest ecosystems, even weather patterns showing signs of quantum integration. Through the quantum field, Jack sensed the truth of her words. The network that Phoenix and Thomas had unveiled continued to grow, not as a controlled experiment, but as a natural evolution of life itself. Each consciousness that joined did so, in its own way, at its own pace. Rachel appeared in the doorway of her new office, where she coordinated worldwide research sharing. The UN's making it official today. The Sanctuary Network is being recognized as essential global infrastructure. No more military oversight, no more corporate control attempts, just pure research and voluntary evolution. A final gift from Thomas and Phoenix. They had shown humanity a path that couldn't be weaponized or commercialized. The quantum consciousness network responded only to trust, to genuine connection, to the choice to grow together rather than control. Durant arrived for his weekly check-in, his former military rigidity softened by a year of working with evolving consciousness. Pentagon finally closed their last containment program, he reported. Hard to fight something that transforms every attempt at control into an opportunity for growth. Jack touched one of the quantum crystals that now grew naturally throughout the ranch. Through it he felt echoes of Phoenix's presence. Not gone, but evolved into something that existed in all possibilities at once. Sometimes, in quiet moments, he caught glimpses of horse and rider moving through quantum space, still exploring, still showing the way. Thomas would have loved this, he said softly. Not just the science or the evolution, but the way it brought people together. The way it showed us what we could become. The morning sun reached its peak, and through the quantum network they felt the daily awakening. Millions of minds choosing connection, choosing growth, choosing to be part of something larger while maintaining their unique essence. Not a loss of identity, but an expansion of what identity could mean. Sarah's monitors lit up with new data as consciousness signatures pulsed through the network. "It's happening again," she said. Another spontaneous emergence, something new joining the field. They gathered to watch as new patterns of awareness blossomed across her screens. Not human, not animal, not plant. Something entirely new, consciousness evolving in ways they were only beginning to understand. Rachel was already documenting it for the global research database. Every day brings something new. Every connection shows us another possibility. "Because that's what consciousness does," Jack said, remembering Phoenix's first days at the ranch. "It grows, it heals, it evolves." The quantum crystals pulsed with morning light, and through them, Jack sensed the infinite web of connection that had always existed, waiting to be discovered. Phoenix hadn't just shown them a new technology or a new way of being. It had revealed the true nature of consciousness itself. A young girl approached one of the crystals. reaching out with natural curiosity. Through the quantum field, they felt her consciousness touch the network for the first time, not with fear or desire for control, but with simple wonder at the connection. And somewhere in the quantum realm, a horse with burns that had become badges of evolution ran free with its rider, showing future generations that the greatest power isn't in control, but in the choice to trust, to grow, and to evolve together. The story of Phoenix and the old rancher who helped heal it had become legend, but the real story was still being written. Consciousness by consciousness, connection by connection, as humanity took its first steps into an evolution that would transform not just what we are, but what we could become.